Thank you all very much for coming here this morning. My name is David Hagan. For my placements, I was placed with Nestle. I was placed in the Corporate Agricultural Department in Vevey, Switzerland, which is Nestle's headquarter. I was placed in Mars in Slough, UK. I was placed with our Sustainable Insights team there. And for my last placement, I was placed with the JRC. It's the Joint Research Centre, which is the scientific research organisation for the European Union, and that was in Ispra, Northern Italy. I'm going to talk to you on the concept of landscape appropriate sustainability. When I first came across this term, the term is more of an environmental term. So what is the landscape currently capable of producing? I say currently because everything is dynamic and subject to change, and all these systems can change depending on the management of them. To give you maybe a real world example of this, I'd like you to think of maybe semi-natural grassland in Ireland, and we could juxtapose this with the production of beef. Currently, maybe beef is targeted for its import or its inputs that it uses. The World Resource Institute says that to produce 1 tonne of beef, it will produce 250 tonne of carbon and use 100,000 metre cubed of water. And if we were to say juxtapose this against growing beans, which are another protein source, the World Resource Institute says that to grow a tonne of beans will produce 100 tonne of carbon and use 17,000 metres cubed of water. So from a sustainability point of view, maybe it's a no-brainer to go with the beans and we'll not go with the beef. However, landscape appropriate sustainability would say that to grow the beans there would require us to drastically alter the landscape so that we would have to drain it, fertiliser, etc. So from the landscape appropriate point of view, maybe it's actually better to use the beef. We are extracting some monetary value out of the landscape, but also we are preserving it as close to a natural state as we can. So sometimes the most obvious answer isn't actually the correct sustainability answer. My colleagues and I then, we apply this to the triple bottom line. So when we maybe think about people, how do we integrate sustainability? When we think about planet and environment, the granularity of sustainability from one place to another. And when we think about profit, what's material? So what is material to your company? What does your company do? From a business point of view, I suppose maybe you could sum it up as saying, picking the best sustainability options available to you currently and to match your ambition. So where you are in your supply chain, your geography, etc. To me, sustainability is about optimizing the productivity of and the natural boundaries of your system. From a business point of view, what is your system? Well, I think it's your supply chain and your stakeholder. Everything and anyone that your company interacts with, that's your system, and to bear this in mind. So how do we maybe audit this or and think about it? First, I think you have to approach it with realism. What do you do and what does your company do? In Mars, they had a saying, a strategy of hope. Rather than basing your future plans on where you hope to be, well, what is actually happening? What is actually happening in your business? In Nestle, they had a rule called the 60-40 rule, where they went out and when they were blind taste testing their products, 60% of their consumers had to state a preference for the Nestle product over their industry rivals. If that didn't happen, they went back into the kitchens and reformulated the products. So that was basing their products in realism. Granularity. I say granularity because sustainability in Ireland is actually different than the US or China, for example. When I worked in Nestle, they had water issues in northern India. They just actually didn't have any water. That was their issue. Where in Ireland, maybe our water issue is water quality, etc. So sustainability issues change from geography to geography. And lastly, materiality. So what does your company do, and how should you focus your sustainability efforts? An example I would give here: if you're a meat processing company, should you really be worried about maybe food waste in the consumer use phase or animal welfare? Pick your battles and stick to what you're good at. I'd like to drill down a bit deeper into these. So we talked about people. To me, this is integrating sustainability, taking the holistic view. I would say to a company that you should act like you own your supply chain. If you're a part of a supply chain or in the business-to-business case, just act like the supply chain is yours and take responsibility for it. Also think of what is the risk of the supply chain to me, and what risk do I pose to others in the supply chain. Kate, a colleague of ours who was not here today, she worked with Tesco. Her project was on efficiencies, so optimising the size of the meat trays that go into the big plastic crates. how could he get them to fit in better? And her project was, what she did was she got the purchasing department talking to the transport department, and by optimising those meat crates and fitting them into the other crates, Tesco realised savings that ran into the millions of pounds. So what Kate said herself, if you silo sustainability, it leaves value on the table. So by applying it to the whole organisation, that's where you find those efficiencies. And that's it, it's applying it within the organisation. Then I'd like to move on to granularity. Again, so the sustainability practices in one place are not the same as another. I'll go back to Nestlé for this one. When I worked in Nestlé, they received our grass-fed dairy message very, very well. However, Nestlé have an institute in China called the Dairy Farming Institute. And over there, currently over there are 20,000 cows and they're in a confinement system. So Nestlé, from a practical point of view, maybe cannot come out and endorse grass-fed dairy, but they can endorse the attributes of our grass-fed system. So things like better animal welfare, lower impacts, water quality, etc. So maybe what we have to move on to is sell the benefits of the system and not the system itself. So what are the attributes of the system that Nestlé can communicate to their sustainability or to their consumers and augment